Whenever the increase button is tapped, the increment function of ProxyProvider is called. setState is executed, and the widget tree is rebuilt. At this time, I want to display the title getter of translations whenever the counter value increases, which is currently displayed as you clicked 0 times in Show Translations. However, if you look at the constructor of the translations class, an integer type argument is required to instantiate the translations class. If the counter value is increased whenever a new translations instance is created using the counter value, and the instance of the translations class is available in the widget tree, you can access the getter of translations object in the Show Translations widget. Then, if you replace you clicked 0 times with the title getter, you can display a title with an increased counter value on the screen every time the counter increases. If you wrap the column widget in a provider widget and create the translations instance in create, the children widgets of a column can access the translations instance. When creating the translations instance, the changing counter value is given as an argument of translations. Now, let's wrap the column widget with the translations type provider and create the translations instance with the counter as an argument in the create callback. In this case, the context argument is not needed, so we will mark it with an underscore. One thing to note here is that when the provider creates translations, it depends on the counter value, which is a changing value. And in the build function of the Show Translations widget, use provider to access the title getter value of the translations instance and store it in the string type final variable title. And replace you clicked 0 times string of the text widget with title. Let's run it after a hard restart. Let's go to the ProxyProvider page and click the increase button a few times. As expected, the counter value in the title did not change when the increase button was pressed, even though translations depends on the changing counter value. Through the counter value printed on the screen, it was confirmed that the counter actually increased, but the screen was not updated. The reason is that, as you know, create is only called once when creating a provider. So we have to use ProxyProvider to change the value of the provider in response to a changing value. Then let's move on to the ProxyProv update page. The current ProxyProv update page is exactly the same as the original ProxyProv page. To reflect what I have said, wrap the column widget with the ProxyProvider 0 and create a new instance of translations every time the counter value changes in the update callback. The update callback of ProxyProvider 0 receives 2 arguments, build context and previous instance of translations. But since they are not used, we will replace them with underscore and double underscore respectively. We need to replace the you clicked 0 times of the Show Translations widget with the title, but it is exactly same as the Show Translations widget of ProxyProv. So I will copy and paste the Show Translations widget of ProxyProv. Now let's see if the update actually happens by doing this. I went to the ProxyProvider update page and clicked the button and an update occurred. Now then, why did the update happen? Let's see again when the update of ProxyProvider is called. The first is, of course, when the value of another provider that this provider depends on changes. Update is called. But when ProxyProvider rebuilds, it is now a rebuild case and update is called again when rebuilding occurs. So, unlike the case of create earlier, the UI is updated. Next, let's take a look at how to fix this example to a case where both create and update are used. But if you look at this case, you can see that you don't have to. Now, let's move on to the ProxyProv create update.dot file. Currently, it is the same as the beginning of ProxyProv.dart.